What's going on, everybody? Hope y'all had a fantastic weekend. Welcome to episode 52 of Outside the Chute. I'm your host, Randy Frame. A few things to touch on. First, got to send out a big congrats to Patty Gasso and the Oklahoma Sooners on their Women's College World Series win after going the distance and defeating FSU 5-1 in the deciding game. Second, this national championship has to go down as one of the best ever. You know, with the emergence of Odyssey Alexander and James Madison University, to perfect game thrown by Montana Fouts, and, you know, to record-breaking attendance and viewership. I think it's safe to say that this game is in great hands and will only continue to grow. Also need to throw out a huge congrats to Coach Mike Candrea on an amazing 36-year career with the Arizona Wildcats. Coach Candrea retired this past week with a phenomenal 1,674 career wins. Assistant coach Caitlin Lowe will take over the reins of the Wildcats and will no doubt do an excellent job. On to this week's guest, and we sat down with a legend from our parts. He's a 4-time All-Canadian, 10-time Mainland Fastball Batting Champion, former goaltender with the California Golden Seals in the NHL, and Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Famer, Lyle Carter. We're going to talk to Lyle about getting a start in the game back in the day in the village of Brookfield, competing at the 1969 Canada Games in Halifax, what it was like to play a national on home soil in Brookfield back in 1971, his experience of playing in the NHL, and much, much more. Getting to interview Lyle was an absolute pleasure for Chris and myself, as we've been on the other side of it over the years with him interviewing us for the Truro Daily News, which he always made such an enjoyable experience. Trust me, everyone's going to love hearing Lyle's stories. With that being said, grab that drink, sit back, relax, because here we go.
I got the world in my palm, lights, camera, action, it's on. I can't describe what I'm feeling, ain't never felt this freedom. I got the world in my palm, lights, camera, action, it's on. Ain't never felt this freedom. Could you say that anything goes, anything goes, anything goes, anything goes, anything goes, anything goes.
Here we go.
Hey, Dick.
What's going on, Hopi?
Not much, man. How are you?
Good, man.
Good.
Tell us about that call you just got.
Oh, yeah. So we're like minutes away from doing our opening, and my wife calls. Well, first of all, one of my daughters is on her way to Acadia with her boyfriend to bring some furniture down.
Yep. So
there's a chair in the back of Liam's truck, and my wife just called me and said, Liam, they're just down by Barry's Furniture on the highway, and the chair flew out of the back of the truck. I was like, oh, yeah? Well, can you go help them? I was like, I'm just about to do the podcast. Can he fucking figure it out? Anyway, it's a good way to start the podcast. You dumbass.
Slowing the draw there.
Yeah.
It's Friday, man.
Yeah, it is. Beautiful weather coming our way.
It's Friday, but it's really Monday.
But it's Friday for us.
Yeah,
right now.
no, true enough.
We got some good weather coming.
We have some fantastic weather. Finally going to
heard some good COVID news today that starting third phase, we can start playing games.
Yeah.
So hopefully the end of June.
The way things are going, yeah. I mean, we talk in our text. I had it projected 1st of July that we'd be able to get going, which, you know, that's a full month ahead of last year.
Oh, 100%.
So
so it shouldn't be too bad. We should be able to get in a number of games. We'll play into October again. I don't care. I loved it.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Oh, man, those playoff games in October were fun.
Yeah. A little chilly at night, but they were fun.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That last game we were in Lance when we were watching it.
Yeah, it was cold. Another thing too, the ball field, I was up, Robin had called me to come up, and they got all the fencing done.
Did they?
Yeah. And they started doing the drainage too just yesterday. So
right on.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And then the lights are next.
Man, that'll be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as we can play.
Yeah, exactly. COVID cases are starting to come down too. So
fantastic.
Things are, it's almost like there's a light at the end of the tunnel now.
That's right.
Yeah.
As long as people keep getting vaccinated and what have you, we're going to be golden.
Exactly. And
I'll get to see my son hopefully the end of the month.
Man.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
I can't wait to see him too.
I know. He's probably 7 feet tall now.
Yeah, probably.
I don't think he
keeps growing.
But yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So your Habs beat the Leafs out.
Amazing, man. Like I never had any faith in the fact that I didn't think they were going to win. especially when they were down 3-1.
Yeah.
And then when we got a couple overtime wins, when we went into game 7, I truly thought we were going to win. I really did. I didn't let on to any of my buddies. I didn't chirp anybody because that's usually bad karma.
Yeah.
But I like seeing all those Toronto Maple Leaf fans chirping that, they were going to win. And Matthews had whatever that comment was about going into the playoffs. That's finally he's going to get some competition or something. Or, well, what's he doing now?
Yeah, exactly.
4.
Well, I mean, if you're going into a winner take all game, why wouldn't you go with Carey Price?
Oh, 100%.
Like you have to bet on Carey Price.
For sure. Like, and as you and I were just talking about, I do feel bad for the likes of Mitch Marner and Jack Campbell.
Yeah.
Like they're getting ripped up hard.
I guess they are.
Yeah. First of all, it's not their fault they lost. Yeah. Not at all.
Well, you look at it, if you look at that series, I would say Jason Spezza and William Nylander were their 2 best players. 100%.
And I love the fact that Jason Spezza was doing so well.
Yeah. Makes Mike Babcock look like an idiot.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. Well, he is an idiot.
Yeah. So anyway, but speaking of hockey as well, our guest today.
Yeah.
Geez, he was in the
Former
NHL.
NHLer. That's right.
California Golden Seal.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Also very big in the softball world here in Nova Scotia.
Certainly is.
And actually across Canada, he 4 All-Canadians and
it's cool stuff.
And stuff like that. Lyle Carter from Brookfield. And
he covers local sports. He has been for a number of years. For the Truro Daily News, is it?
He's interviewed he's interviewed us a number of times.
Yeah.
So it's going to be funny being able to, talk to him about that. Yeah.
He's always been a great man to talk to. He's one of the kindest people I know.
Yeah.
He always, gave you time. Even there could be 1,000 guys around. He'd still say hi to you for sure at the ball field.
Yeah. And he would make it a point, to come over and pick you out of the crowd and talk to you. But I mean, that's how, I grew up in Brookfield and I was at his house all the time. And, And that was the door was always open. You know what I mean?
That's
Like
cool.
being able to walk in and
Hamilton Gardens.
Hamilton Avenue Gardens. That's right. We'll talk about that during the podcast.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
This should be a good one. I hope we're not going to get into Peaches territory, but
I don't have time actually. I got a vaccine scheduled for tomorrow.
Okay. Anyway, well, let's get to Lyle then.
All right, my friend.
Yo.
All right, here we go. Lyle, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Very happy to join you and Chris, Randy. Looking forward to chatting with you.
Yes, how's things going up there in Brookfield?
Pretty good. I'm up to the ball field quite often, do a little walking up there, and Donald Henderson hasn't coming in great shape for this time of year. It's looking good.
That's
right
good.
On.
Yeah.
Elk Park's always in fantastic shape.
It's a beauty for sure.
It's got to be the best ball field in Nova Scotia, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of history there, that's for sure. And, I'm kind of proud to think of some of the history there. As a kid, of course, they played baseball there, and then Terry Henderson pretty well was the main one in having it switch over to softball in 1955.
Right. Actually, that was I was going to ask you about that because I heard baseball had started there, and I was wondering when the switchover was. So how did that all take place?
Well, what happened, to be brief, Brookfield Elks played in the Truro District Baseball League, and the big team to beat in those days was the Londonderry Ironclads. They won a lot of championships, Bible Hill, some of the Truro teams, and one favorite team of many of us was the Truro Sheiks, a black team, and they were certainly a good bunch of ball players. But I think the Elks were having a little trouble fielding a team. They weren't quite as competitive as they'd like to be. And in '55, Terry Henderson came home from Acadia University, and he had played softball at Acadia, and he kind of promoted changing over to softball, and there's been some great years since.
Oh, for sure.
I guess there has been.
Yeah.
So maybe tell us about, you getting your start in the game back in the day in Brookfield.
Well, I would have started at probably around 14 as far as playing for the Elks went in intermediate ball. And the Elks in the early years had to kind of grow. They started out, I just like to mention this, to you, Randy, and to Chris, I remember the Elks playing a strong team from DeBert. I believe the team was called DeBert Comets. And they had a pitcher, and some of the old-timers would certainly remember Kenny Goodwin, but he was the best around these parts. He went on to pitch a number of years in senior in Halifax. But I think one of the early games in Brookfield against DeBert was 21-1 or 19-1 for DeBert. So,
wow.
There were some growing years there, to learn the game and become competitive. And I would have came along, I guess, somewhere later in the 50s, late 50s. And but I had to say this, I'll never forget breaking in, because we had Johnny Matheson in center field and Huey Matheson at first base and Terry Henderson at second base and so on. And these guys were so good to a young kid. I mean, I'd be out of position and in the wrong spot and all the rest. And I'll never forget breaking in with those guys and how good they were to play with.
It's awesome.
Oh, that'd be I can just imagine having to play under Huey Matheson. Geez, I mean, he would have coached my dad in hockey, and I've known Huey my whole life, and he's pretty imposing to me. But being able to play under them must have been a pretty good thing there, Lyle.
Yeah, see, Huey, I'm glad you mentioned that, Randy, because Huey coached between hockey and ball. He coached a lot of hockey, and he coached a lot of ball. There was a number of years Terry Henderson coached, but there was also a number of years that Huey Matheson coached, and he had a way of being able to handle players, and I guess he could get you serious enough and committed enough that he seemed to get the most out of athletes, and your father would be able to talk about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Actually, funny story about that. Remember when Huey used to run the rink there, and they had the district hockey league, and Dad was playing in that. And, that was back when, Stuyak had a team, Upper Stuyak, and there was Team Toyota and teams like that. And I can remember a game, I would have been young. I think I was about 8 or 9, and something had gone down, and Dad got mad and threw his stick from one end of from the penalty box there in Brookfield, and it went over the glass and just missed Huey's head. And the look on Dad's face when Huey was staring him down was just I'll never forget it. And I was so young too, but you can imagine what would be going through Dad's head.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Randy. That was a great league. It was called the South Colchester District Hockey League. And like you mentioned, Upper Stuyak, Middle Stuyak, Hilden, Stuyak East, Alton, and so on. And they used to put some pretty good-sized crowds in the sportsplex. And I certainly remember your father playing and a good many other guys. And it was good hockey and good for the rink.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. One thing I wanted to touch on, Lyle, is when I was doing my research, and I need to actually thank Nancy Van Tassel for this because she provided the information for me. You played in the 1960 Canada Games that were held in Halifax, correct?
Yes, I'm just stopping to think of the year. I'm kind of thinking it might have been the 1969 Canada Games.
Yeah. So what do you remember about that experience?
Well, it was the first time. I think it was a great thing for softball, and I think there'll be a lot of other older players agree with me, but it was probably the first time a lot of us saw the big chuckers from Ontario and Richmond Hill and maybe British Columbia and these places. During those years, in that particular year, the big pitcher in Canada was a left-hander from South Porcupine, Ontario, the name of Pete Landers. I nearly lost his name. But, for us to get him to see him pitch down here and some of the other big pitchers who've been pitching in the Canadian tournaments, it was brand new to us and a real eye-opener and good for us,
Yeah, that was, and of course it was held in Halifax. And doing my research on that, I come across that they were unexpectedly that the crowds were big for baseball and softball for it.
Yes, I can't say a lot about the baseball because I wasn't there, but the softball crowds were unbelievable. And we're talking sports history here, but I believe that was probably the first year for the Canada Games Diamond, which you and Chris will know quite well. Mm-hmm. But the crowds were huge. Like I would say several thousand, but whether it was 3,000, 4,000 or more, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, we did play a lot of games at that field. How many times?
Oh my God, so many.
I can remember getting fogged out of games there, like in the second game of a doubleheader. Like,
I can remember hearing car alarms going off because it was not a nice area when we were playing there.
It's interesting to hear you guys talk about it.
Yeah.
So on that Canada Games team, was there any notables that would have been on your team that you can remember?
Oh, there was. One of the greatest ball players in Nova Scotia in my time. And as far as I'm concerned, he's a Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Famer, was Denny Clake. Denny was from Truro, a black man, and one of the great outfielders and great hitters. And there were the Spears brothers. We had Sydney and Glace Bay represented. They picked a team from right across the province, and they kind of shared it up in their selection. And I didn't go against them a lot, but I've all my lifetime since that, and that's quite a few years ago, I really thought that Huey Madison should have been on the team at first base, and Terry Henderson should have been on the team at second base. And, the selection committee had a tough job. They wanted the province represented. But, in my opinion, two of the better players weren't on the team. And I'm not crying sour grapes. It's just an opinion,
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, for sure. But Donald Ross was with you on that team, was he not?
Oh, Donald Ross. I'm glad you mentioned Donald. Yeah, Donald Ross was one of the stars in that team, and a left-handed pitcher from Berwick by the name of Gary Whittier. He was one of the best pitchers down here at that time. And, some of the other names, and trying to be fair here, I can't think of them all, but we had some pretty nice ball players in that team. Yeah. I believe we possibly tied for third or finished fourth, and the team played pretty well in that tournament.
Right. Did Gary end up playing with the Elks a few years later with you?
Yes, he did. He came to Brookfield to pitch a couple of years after that, and I think he pitched Brookfield to a Maritime title one season there. Yes. Oh,
right on. Another thing came across there, 1971 Canadian Senior Nationals. They were held in Halifax and Brookfield, which I never knew about.
We did not know.
Brookfield being able to host the Nationals before. You led the tournament in hitting 550. What was it like to play a game in Brookfield during a national tournament? I can only imagine how crazy that would have been.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it. Before I answer that, Chris, you were aware that Canadian tournament was, how would you say it, co-played in Brookfield, kind of?
No, I was not aware of that, to be honest, Lyle. I had no clue that it was played in Brookfield.
I would Randy. Chris and Randy, I would estimate some of the crowds were certainly in the 3,000 area. It was unbelievable. A good question, Randy asked. It was exciting. It was really exciting. Like, I played before some pretty big crowds in hockey, and but to have that in your own home community, the crowds that were there, and the cars in Carter Road wouldn't handle all the cars. They were parked on the main drag in Brookfield, the road that leads to Middle Stewiacke. They were in fields in every place, and
that's awesome.
Those are great days. Yeah,
that would have been, the rink wasn't built till 75, so that what was where the rink was.
Where the rink was at one time, they for a couple of years they tried to have a little league baseball park, which would have set partly where the rink was, but that was just extra ground in those days. But I want to tell you one highlight I remember from that 75. I nearly said championship, but it was championship play, and we finished fairly high in that, if I remember right. But I remember Huey Madison batting in Brookfield against Pete Landers. And the crowd just roaring. Huey come to the plate. Huey was a tough out. He hit a fair amount of home runs, but he also hit the good line drive single. He was a tough out. And he, one of the early pitches from Pete Landers. He drove it into right field for a single. And I think I can hear that crowd roaring yet. It was unbelievable. Nice. It's almost deafening.
Yeah.
No doubt. I can just thinking about it, like, kind of gives me goosebumps, because I can't imagine being able to play at a national championship in Brookfield.
In your backyard.
Yeah. Well, it would have been my backyard, actually. So, I mean, like, that would just been incredible, Lyle.
Yeah, another thing I have to say there, just so you guys get the full picture, and I think you do, Huey Madison was one of the competitors in sports. I mean, I knew him well in both ball and hockey, and Brookfield was known for some great competitors. Turk Henderson's up there, and Terry Henderson, all the rest, but and then some of the younger guys in your guys' time. But Huey was a fierce competitor, and I think he got a base hit off Pete Landers just because he didn't want to show Landers that he was any better than the rest of us,
Well, I mean, that's the thing. That's the Brookfield mentality, though. I mean, like, that, I should say the biggest thing I learned growing up in Brookfield was, it's not over till it's over, and you always go right to the end.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and when you say that, you really make me think of Donald Ross, because he was a tremendous team man, and I saw him over the years, Randy. You saying that we might have been down 4-1 or 5-1, and he was talking like we were winning, we were going to win for sure, and sometimes we did. He was that kind of a guy.
Yeah, no, I've known Donald since I moved to Brookfield when I was 8 years old, and getting Martin, his son, was in my class. So Martin and I became friends, and I ended up, going up to Donald's place quite a bit throughout the years. And it's funny, we'd end up having, later on, like myself and Josh McCollum and Brooks and all those guys, Donald would have us playing like a kind of like a little pickleball game, but you'd use like a broomstick and you'd throw a tennis ball, and it became like a game, more or less. And as much as we tried, Donald would beat us all the time.
Yeah.
I know he did that right up until probably his 50s. He could still, into his 50s, he could still beat some of the young fellows playing, like you say, overhand tennis ball or a ball with a wiffle ball, which was made of plastic. And he was a tremendous competitor.
I guess he was. Well, I want to ask about the Mainland Fastball League. I come across that you won 10 batting titles in that.
Why not 11, Lyle?
Maybe tell us about the Mainland Fastball League and how it was. Well, the big thing I want to say about the Mainland Senior Softball League, the Elks, if they won intermediate titles, as the history goes, then they finally won the Nova Scotian Maritime Senior B. So there's only one place to go then is Senior A. And a big part of history I remember, and Donald Ross, who's, as we know, is deceased now, but Donald and I waited at the corner in Brookfield probably for 2 to 3 hours till Don Henderson and Terry Henderson arrived back from Halifax, because we knew they were down trying to get the Elks accepted in the Senior A League. And when they come back and give us the word and all the details that the Elks were accepted into Senior A, that was a big moment, especially for Donald and I and a lot of other ball players. So in 68, our first season in the Senior A, we won, I believe we won both the Nova Scotia Championship and the Maritime Championship. And, a lot of titles followed, guys, but it led up to 1980, and they won the Canadian.
That's right.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that 1980s, actually. I know you were retired from the game at this point, but what was the village like in Brookfield that summer when the Elks won?
Well, I'd just like to share briefly a couple things, but before I do, I want to kind of surprise you two guys and tell you this afternoon, for the first time, I think ever, I had a visitor at the house, and it was Robert Putnam.
Oh, wow.
First time I think Robert was ever in the house. We've been friends and talked ball and hockey for years, but he came to the house for a reason to see me. And actually, I don't mind telling you what it was. Steve Healy turned 70 tomorrow. And
wow.
Robert was doing tapes on his telephone camera. So you guys know modern technology better than I do. He had taped Terry Henderson, and him and Mike had done one, and he came, and I did a short one to Steve, too, as well, which I was honored to do. But anyways, Putty was here. But no, what I remember, the memories are so good, but I remember about something like 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning. People tell this story different, but I remember the fans being lined up in the main street of Brookfield.
Oh, man.
Like idiots, like we were. I was one of them, and we were all lined up. But across from the Baptist church, there was a duplex, and a lady by the name of Vicky Krause lived there. And I don't know if she was 90 or late 80s, but when the Elks combined, I think they put them on the fire truck. Vicky Krause is out dancing. She's doing the jig.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Or, dancing, yelling, and the whoops and the hollers. And then, if I remember right, everyone went up to the ball field, followed them up to the field. And it had to be getting on to 2 o'clock in the morning or so. Yeah.
That's insane. Like, I can just imagine what that would have been like.
Yeah.
Like,
But
unreal.
talking to you two guys, I have to say, I know how much you both love fastball and how much you both done for the game. And I say thank you for doing it. I remember, I'd like to share this with you, my own days playing, which ties in with all this.
Mm-hmm.
And Donald Ross and I used to talk. We thought there would never be a day, and the day would never come where we'd ever want to do anything except play ball at Elk Park, other parks. But it's funny. The day does come. There comes a time when you feel it's time for someone else, the young guys, to have their chance and so on, and you step back. But for us to, especially me, to step back around 77 or whenever I finished up, and then to see the Elks win the Canadian Championship, and and there's no sense of hiding this, because I feel the same way I'm sure Huey Madison feels, and Johnny Madison and a lot of others. Well, maybe we did a little something along the way to encourage this or to help. Yeah, we're not trying to take any credit, but it makes you feel some good when you see all the guys come along, and even seeing ball still going on Thursday night at Elk Park now. It's a great feeling,
That's great.
Yeah. It's funny you brought that up, because that's kind of how I felt in 17 when you guys won the Mastodons. Like, I felt like, I was teammates with every single one of those guys on the team pretty much. And, I was right there along with the ride with you guys watching it. And you can ask my wife, when you guys went ahead, I think everybody in Dutch Settlement could hear me. So I mean, I know exactly what you're saying there, Lyle.
Yeah, and hearing you and Chris talk, I kind of felt like, I don't think you'll mind me asking the question to Chris, but I never played on a Canadian Championship winner, and that's one thing I would have loved to have done. The best shot I had was one year I was picked up by Dairy Queen, and we finished second to Richmond Hill Dines. They beat us in the finals, and that game was kind of interesting to mention to you guys. That game was nationally televised.
Wow.
They played tremendous. We didn't have a real good game. We'd beaten Quebec the night before. We beat Hull Quebec 16-6. Team, just everybody hit unbelievable. They couldn't believe we were as good hitters, and maybe we left a little the night before. But
yeah.
It must be a great thing. It must be almost like, I don't know, a dream, or to look back when it's you've finally done it to win a Canadian, to beat everybody, the best teams in Canada.
Yeah, well, I can say up until we got back to the hotel after we won the game is when it kind of really struck me that we actually just won a Nationals. And actually, I won't lie, and I won't swear. I actually shed a tear, because I thought of all the hard work that everybody had put in leading up to that point. And I've been around a long time. I'd been at a numerous amount of Nationals, never had that chance. Never won. I did win a silver medal with the Keats back in 94 as well. But when we finally won that, and I really realized that what we had accomplished, it was more than amazing. And I was super proud of everybody that I played with, coached with. As you said earlier, a lot of people lead up and help out with all of the behind the scenes stuff, and all those players that push other players. Some of them aren't recognized because they weren't on the team, but they all played a huge part in us winning that tournament for sure, that national title. Yeah.
I think you covered it really well, Chris. That was really, really, really good to hear. I love the sports history, hockey and baseball and fastball, but to hear someone talk about what it was like getting back to the hotel, that finally sinking in. Hey, we won what we were after. We won the Canadian.
That's right. Yeah.
Tremendous.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you about, a lot of people know you from, your professional hockey career. What was it? How did the juggling go, with your hockey career and being also able to play at a high level of softball back then?
Well, it was a different era. As you guys know, a lot of guys played two sports in those days. They'd come home and play ball. I remember a couple good NHL players. Good real NHL players. One was Al McNeil from Sydney. I remember Al playing baseball for Sydney Mines, and we had an outstanding hockey player from Halifax, Wayne Maxner. And Wayne was protected by the Boston Bruins back in the days of the 6 teams, and he'd come home and play softball with Halifax Geese. And in those days it was more accepted. And now I think the hockey player, correct me or help me here, but they're training more nearly year round.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
make it a one sport. Maybe you can play a little golf or something, but don't get involved in the second major sport kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I think Zach might have had something, when his NHL contract that, he was.
Yeah, I don't think he was allowed to play.
Yeah, I don't think he was allowed.
In case he got injured or something of that nature.
Yeah, exactly. So I know that was just something I was wondering, you guys wouldn't have had nothing in your contracts back then that would have prevented you from, playing softball, right?
No, but the story on Don Sherry, and part of his story was that he wasn't supposed to be playing, I think it might have been baseball in Kingston, when he was injured in the outfield or whatever happened. And
that's right.
Sometimes maybe it was just verbal, but I think Zach might have had something in his contract. I'm not sure of that, but I heard stories where Zach wasn't supposed to be playing softball.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you about, you played a handful of games with the California Golden Seals in the NHL. Can you tell us what that experience was like for you?
There was actually 3 hands because it was 15 games.
15 games, yeah.
Shut up.
Well, I had nowhere to go here, but just to be short on this, I had come up through the senior hockey leagues. I played senior in Newfoundland a couple of years. I played in the Nova Scotia senior, Maritime senior, in Ontario senior. So, it was it was quite a long climb. And to get there, to get to Oakland, certainly, something like Chris describing winning the big Canadian, it was certainly wonderful. But I didn't have the kind of season or get to play the kind of hockey in the NHL that I had hoped to, and don't want to go into a long thing and cry sour grapes and that. But I was injured in Buffalo, and a lot of people don't realize it, but when I was injured in Buffalo, I'm trying to think the period probably would have been sometime in November through December or whatever. I had 6 starts with the Seals in that period of time, and we won 5 of the games. And I was starting to feel like I was getting my legs under me, getting the confidence to go on. And anyways, I was hit by a slap shot by Richard Martin, an injury that still some people are still talking about. And reason being that, long story short, I was to Los Angeles back a little over a year ago for a bunch of specialists to look at me, a couple of head injuries I had in the States. And by the way, I'm supposed to go back again in August or September. But anyways, it kind of changed things around, put the upset the apple cart, I was out for 3 weeks. I was injured for 3 weeks, and I had he hit me in the rib. They call it torn rib cartridge, I guess it was, and it tore open again in 3 weeks' time in the game in Minnesota, and just completely ruined that season and so on. But things like this happen in sports, and there's a good many, like dozens, if not hundreds of players that had rougher things happen to them.
Yeah.
than myself. So I'm not crying about it, but I do want to tell you this. A National Hockey Leaguer had everything taken away from him. And if anyone tells you I'm wrong, send them to me. Was Wayne Maxner. He was protected, like I mentioned, by the Boston Bruins when there's 6 teams. So he was an elite player.
Yeah.
Had won the scoring championship in the OHA, grew up in Halifax and so on. And when he slid into second base and broke his leg bad that night in the Halifax Commons, Wayne Maxter was taken right away from him. He might have played a game or two in the NHL after, but very few.
That's
so unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I mean, we know the name around here with Wayne Maxner, and yeah, like you said, being protected by an original 16 back then is a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Lyle, I wanted to ask you about
Steve Mullally?
No, we're not talking about Molly.
Good, right.
That's a little inside joke here on here, Lyle.
Sorry, Lolly.
We talk about Steve Mullally from Newfoundland all the time on here.
All the time, every time.
I'll ask you guys real quick, not to ruin Randy's train of thought.
That's all right.
Who was a big hitter for many years out of Newfoundland? I read about him for years.
We're not talking about him. It's Steve Mullally.
No, it was probably Colin Abbott. Yeah.
Abbott. Yeah, Abbott.
Colin Abbott.
Yeah, we talked to Colin here on the podcast, and what a fantastic guest he was.
Yeah, he's a beauty.
My gosh, I didn't know you had him on. Did you?
Yeah. He gave us the rundown of his career, and geez, he's been through a lot.
He sure has.
He was some hitter.
Yeah, absolutely. Lyle, I wanted to ask about like I said before. I mean, I had the privilege of growing up in Brookfield from when I was 8 years old on. And the landscape of ball for me growing up, was fantastic. And, we had a bunch of teams there and everybody was playing. And actually communities around like Hilden, Salmon River Valley, all of them had teams. And that's when Brookfield would have still had their senior team. What do you remember, what the ball was like in the late 80s, early 90s for us growing up in Brookfield?
Well, I remember going up to the field when a lot of you young guys were playing, and what I remember stands out to me was the young talent, the exciting young players that were coming along. I remember seeing you around the rink, probably those days that you came with your father, Randy, because I was around the South Colchester District Hockey League a lot. But I just remember mostly that there was a lot of good young ball players coming along, and I'm thinking of the years that you guys came along, and guys like Jack Roop and Brooks Van Tassel, some of the names you mentioned. Mm-hmm. We could see whole prospects coming left, right, and center. Yeah.
No, it was. I cherish those days growing up in Brookfield. I mean, I tell Chris all the time, it was a privilege growing up in Brookfield.
100%.
Yeah. Is there what's to ask you, Chris, what was the best thing for you, playing with the Elks?
Well, as we talked about before, I hated the Elks growing up. I was from East Hants, and it was always a battle when we played them. My biggest thing, I think, going into Brookfield was the mentality that they had of wanting to win and never quitting, like you had mentioned earlier, and the fact that I made so many friends but playing there, and guys that would have your back no matter what, constantly, and still to this day it would be the same thing. And they all still, I know they all love ball. Unfortunately, a lot of it, when they folded the tent there, and a lot of them don't play anymore, but some of them are still helping out with minor ball too. So yeah, that's probably one of the biggest things.
Yeah. Right on.
Well, I'd like to ask a quick question there. I'm glad you mentioned that, Randy, and thank you, Chris. How many years did you play in Brookfield, Chris?
I played from 2000 till 2010 when I was injured.
Well, I would have said 10 or 11 years, so I would have been pretty close.
Yeah, there was one year. There was one year that they folded up. I played with the Mulgrave Eagles that year, went to National in St. Thomas.
That was 04,
and then they came back. 04, yeah. And then they came back again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people still talk about you playing here, Chris. I'm not saying that I know anything or I know a lot, but I've been writing. I'm coming up to, I think, 27 years with the newspaper. I'm getting very close, and I've talked with you for the paper, Chris.
Yeah.
You too, Randy, over the years. But Chris, one of the questions I get asked is, I was asked this recently a couple of times. So your name come up and someone said, "Where's Chris originally from?" And you know what? I started stuttering and stammering. Where did you grow up as a young fella?
I actually grew up in Dartmouth until I was 14.
Yes.
And then moved to Elmsdale, and I lived in Hants County ever since.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
Originally a Cape Brettoner, though, but I don't like to talk about that.
Are you really? Where
my parents were from Glace Bay. Actually, my mom was from New Waterford. My dad was from Glace Bay, and I lived in Sydney until I was 5, and then to Sydney.
I never knew that.
Yeah. Yes, boy.
Place New Waterford. That's great. My wife Susan is from Sydney.
Okay.
My grandmother was a Meach from South Bar, so we absolutely love Cape Breton in this house.
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Actually, mentioning about your host there, Lyle, I was telling Chris before we started recording about growing up in Brookfield and how you converted you used to have the horse barn there, and then converted into kind of like a basketball court / ground hockey with the boards and everything. And we used to go there almost every single day to play, and you called it Hamilton Avenue Gardens.
Yeah.
And I need to thank you for creating that when I was young, because I had so many great memories from there.
Well, look, thank you for playing there, Randy, and thanks for mentioning it. I was so proud when I saw you playing there, and Zach Sill played there, and I could name some others. Jack, my son, Rob Carter, you played some hockey with, and those are great days. And I want to tell you, in case you ever missed this, probably two of the famous guys to play ground hockey there on a hot August day, I think the sweat was just pouring off them when they finished, would have been Andy Van Helleman, the National Hockey League referee.
And Paul Stewart. I remember.
They came to open the golf course. They were going to have they were the two main features in the opening of the Brookfield golf course that day. And they played ground. I don't know if you were in that game or not.
I 100% was there. I remember that plain as day, Lyle.
Oh, I'm glad you were, because that was something. It was really hot. It was a hot day.
Yeah, I felt bad. Actually, I kind of felt bad for them, because I think I may have talked their ear off asking them about NHL players, and because I mean that's just how I was back. Because I mean, hockey was a big part of my life, and I think I talked their ear off.
Chris and Randy, what Randy just said and Chris said earlier, perhaps a pot of gold here. The pot of gold is the memories we have.
Oh, for sure it is. That's why we love doing this podcast, to be honest. We get to talk to so many people that have been involved in the sport and so long, and different avenues, and it's amazing. Yeah,
it definitely is. Actually, Lyle, I want to ask you, you touched briefly on doing your articles for the Truro Daily News. How did that all come about anyway?
Well, during the days I ran a sports shop when I first retired from hockey in 1975 in the rink for 3 or 4 years there before I moved to Truro. CKCL invited me to do a radio show, which was called Saturday Morning Sports Scene. So I did that for 3 years or so. And then that led to going to work for the Truro News. And I was, for many years, I wrote 2 columns a week. I just write the 1 column now, and maybe was getting a little older. But so that's how it came about, Randy.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, I said to Chris before we started recording here, I said, it's kind of funny how you all these years have interviewed Chris and I, and now the shoe's on the other foot.
Yeah, that's right.
I know you guys really put one over on me here.
Yeah. Lyle, we have a little thing that we end the podcast with. It's called Player Association. I'm going to throw out a name to you from the past, yes. And you can talk about them, as you wish, right?
Okay, more or less the first thing that comes to mind.
You can elaborate all you want. You can talk as long as you want about them. So the first one I have on the list is Don Henderson.
Don Henderson. What comes to mind about Don is how good he was to all us young kids at a very young age. My family couldn't afford hockey gear. It's a fact. Who could in those days? And Don used to say to me, "Come down, young fella, get the Elks goalie pads and the Elks belly pad." And that was kind of when I really got to know Don. I'd be down there and became stick boy for the Elks at a young age, the Elks of the Truro District Hockey League. And Don Henderson was, I called him a sports ambassador, what he did for this community. And I could go on, but I know I'll miss something, but I mentioned him and Terry. It was Terry Henderson and Don Henderson that got the Elks in Senior A. And you guys know that years later, after Senior A success, they were Canadian champs. So can't say enough about Don.
Right on. And you just touched on him a little bit. Next on the list is Terry Henderson.
Terry is a chip off the old block. You know, he's another Don, and you have quite a few Dons in the family. And Mike coming along behind Terry, but Terry, as a coach, and a lot of things should be said about Terry as a coach, but I remember he studied hitting. As a young man, he studied hitting, and he knew all about hitting, and I found that he was really strong in helping young ball players at the plate, how to stand, how to crouch, how to watch the ball, and he knew all about the infield plays and the outfield plays, just a student of the game. And we were very fortunate to have a Terry Henderson living in the community, and just a great community man.
Yeah, and he still does. He was still doing the trivias there the last few years there at Elk Park that nobody could get.
No, and the other thing too about Terry is I've played ball, as we mentioned earlier, in Brookfield for 10 years, and he still announced me as Chris Hopwell. Thanks, Terry.
Wow, that's hilarious. Oh, well.
That's trivia.
Next on the list, Lyle, is Sterling Delaney.
Sterling Delaney was a close friend of mine. We grew up together as young lads and played together. What a team, man, and what a great competitor he was. And he'd give you everything he had. And as good a ball player as he was, and he was a good Senior A ball player and had a lot of good seasons, I believe Sterling was 13 or 14 years of age before he had skates on, and he became a heck of a goaltender. He played with, a number of intermediate teams, and he played with the Truro Bearcat Old Timers, went down and played in Florida and so on. Just a great guy, Sterling, and I miss him.
Yeah, I can actually remember his son, John, played with me a year. I think it would have been in Adam in Brookfield, and Sterling helped coach. So I got to know Sterling as well, at a young age. But yeah, you're right. He was a fantastic guy.
He really was.
Yeah. Next on my list is Mike Henderson.
Well, Mike, another real student of the game. I mean, he was such an intelligent athlete. I always said about him and Robert Putnam and a lot of the young players who came along there, especially in the late 80s or late 70s and into the 80s. They seemed to know the game so well. They knew what was coming in the next innings and who was coming up in 2 innings time, and all the great things they knew about ball. And two great ball players like Mike. Different years there, he was all Canadian second baseman, and I just remember him as being a great leader. And without him, I think the Canadian championship probably would have been in question. But no, just a great athlete, and like I say, really knows sports.
Yeah, for sure. 2 more on the list here. Touched on him a little bit there.
Steve Mullally.
No, not Steve Mullally. Robert Putnam.
Robert Putnam, and again, like Mike, what I had to say about Robert is, in my time, I actually coached the Elks in '75, and I believe Robert and Mike and them were sophomore players their second year then. But Putty, for a number of years there leading up to that Canadian championship, around the league, around the Mainland League, I heard him referred to different times as the MVP. And that says a lot. A lot of people looked up to Robert Putnam as the MVP of any top team in Nova Scotia or the Maritimes. And he could do it all. You guys remember Putnam, and he could do it all. He could bunt and beat out a bunt, and he could run, he could hit and field and pitch, and just a valuable ball player.
Absolutely. And last on the list, he would have been your bat boy back in '71, Bobby Campbell.
Yeah, Bobby went on to have a tremendous career. I remember him as Bat Boy, and remember him as a real young kid, and he became some catcher and a snappy catcher. And like I always say about Bobby Campbell, he made the biggest catch in Brookfield Elks history.
100%.
Yeah.
He got that strikeout pitch, and a great team guy, great outlook, well-liked athlete.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Lyle, I mean, we touched on everything we needed to here. This has been an absolute pleasure for me, to be able to interview you for once and, talk about, your ball career and touch on your hockey career a little bit. So, I need to thank you for coming on here.
Look, thanks for having me, Randy and Chris, and I can promise you we'll be in touch, and looking forward to some ball this summer.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
We'll see you at Elk Park for sure, Lyle.
Good, Chris. Thanks a lot.
Take care, Lyle.
Okay, take care, Lyle.
Good chatting with you.
Thanks, Randy. See you guys.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
There we go.
That was a record for me, by the way.
A record.
I didn't swear.
You didn't swear.
once.
That's true.
I had to bite my tongue a lot.
I know you did. You caught yourself. You caught yourself once there.
I
but,
did.
Man, that honestly, that goes, on my, if I had a bucket list for interviews, I mean, Lyle Carter is definitely on there because, I grew up in Brookfield and got to, he treats everybody like he's known them forever. You know what I mean? And he's
such a nice man.
Yes.
Genuine.
Yeah.
Did you mention that he had 4 All-Canadians as well?
4 All-Canadians. I did not mention that. I mean, I'll definitely mention that in the intro.
Should we call him back?
Yep, let's call him back.
Yeah, you'll mention the
But no, man, that's being able to talk to Lyle. That's awesome.
Yeah. If anybody had the luxury of meeting him, they would know what we're talking about as far as how genuine he is.
And the funny thing is,
such a nice man.
A stranger could call up Lyle right now and say, hey, Lyle, I'm such and such. You don't know who I am, but I've followed your career and everything. Lyle would sit down and have a half-hour conversation with them.
100% he would.
Yeah.
But a half hour, it would be an hour.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. The man can talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no.
Absolutely. But that was awesome.
Yeah.
But
I always look forward to seeing him actually when we're at the ball field.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just whatever. He always asks how the family is. He always asks how Jake is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just remembering that. And he is a beauty man for sure.
How is Jake?
Jake's fine.
Hi, Jake. I miss you.
He won't listen to the podcast because he doesn't want to hear my voice. Pussy.
What a guy.
I told him I wouldn't say that. No, he's doing good.
Actually, you know what's funny?
Yeah.
Now that I bring this up, you said about he doesn't want to hear your voice. Do you know, after I edit a podcast, I do not listen to, I've never listened to any of the episodes.
Is that right?
100. After I edit it,
Yeah.
I just find it weird hearing my voice. Like, even when I'm editing, I'm like,
Yeah, your voice is
God.
stupid as shit.
It is.
But I understand. I don't like listening to me either just because of your voice.
Thanks, man.
I listen, I got to be honest, I do listen to a lot of them. Actually, I've listened to all of them. Only because I sometimes when you and I are here, I miss some of the things that went on during the interview. And you're the same. And I know when you're editing them, you miss like what I did with, with Blair?
Oh, I got to bring that. Like, I was telling Chris before we started here, when I was editing Blair's podcast and he was talking about, we're going to talk about Lolly for fuck's sake.
Fucking Lolly.
Talking about Lolly hitting the camera and breaking it finally. And in the background, I could hear Hopi going, oh, Lolly. Something like that. And I burst out laughing when I was editing the podcast. And just little things like those, like that I catch. And it happens all the time. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
And that's why I like listening to them again.
and the fact, like, when I'm editing, you'll get texts from me saying,
yeah, I can't believe you said that.
exactly. Like, oh, shit.
Bum swap.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, my God. I still, one of that, the episode with Brad Ezekiel. When
Yeah.
I said the mother, all from the same mother.
Oh,
something
Jesus
stupid like
Christ,
that.
yeah.
I was like,
Let's not get into that.
I almost edited it out, but
Yeah.
I couldn't because that's content.
That's right.
Yeah.
I had a question. Why didn't you do quick pitches with Lyle? Throwing you under the bus.
I know, because I thought it might have took a long time. Can you imagine us asking Lyle, what's your favorite 3 movies of all time?
What would they be? Casablanca.
I don't know, man.
I don't know either.
Something with Clint Eastwood, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway.
Another thing I was going to ask you before.
Sure, of course.
When we were going to do the intro, I was going to bring it up.
Yeah.
Did you happen to catch the national televised game between Washington and Oklahoma?
I did indeed. I caught it in the later innings only because I was out 4-lane with my family.
Yeah.
But amazing ball. Those ladies are so super skilled.
Yeah.
The only thing I wish was the game was closer. In the end, just because it makes it a little bit anticlimactic, dramatic.
Yeah. Well, I said
when it's not that close.
I told you, Gabby Plain was getting squeezed early on.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
I mean, there was pitches coming in right at the knees, like right across the plate, and the ump wasn't calling it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, this is.
And what about the upset?
Oh, let's talk about that. I mean, the Women's College World Series is going to be over by the time this airs, but we'd be remiss if we didn't bring up the fact that James Madison beat Oklahoma.
Yes.
Like that has to be the biggest upset in NCAA softball history.
I would think. It was amazing to watch.
Oh my God. Just imagine being on that team and beating the top ranked team in America by a lot. Like they broke records. Oklahoma broke records this year. Like
so good.
I was going as the game was going on, because I was following it on and I will mention this, the D1 softball website, their score tracker is amazing.
Oh, good.
It's like real time. So like they're going ball 1, ball 2. Like shout out to them, like that. What they have there is fantastic. But
shout out, we're looking for a sponsor.
They have their own podcast, I think.
We need a sponsor.
Anyway, I was looking at Oklahoma's batting order, and it had their season averages.
Yeah,
their lowest batting average for the season was 312.
Oh, that's horrible.
Their top 5
sounds like Team Newfoundland. For
their top 5 hitters were hitting over 400.
That's nuts. Holy shit.
That's insane. And James Madison, Odyssey Alexander, was able to contain that offense.
That's incredible.
And man, I can't wait to see how they did tonight against they were playing Oklahoma State.
Okay.
So be interesting to see how they fare. I love Cinderella stories in any sport.
Me too.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing I forgot to mention too, and we're getting a little long here, but I'm so glad LeBron got beat.
I know, me too.
Man, I hate basketball. Anyway.
You know what's going to be funny? We're going to have the first time we're ever going to have comments on stuff. And it's going to be because we're complaining about LeBron.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else? We don't get anything.
Well, we did get one comment from, was it Jason Gerbies or about, somebody said something about our Canadian potty mouths.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The boys beyond the dugout. Because I think we're going to be doing something with them later on down the line. And
I can't swear again.
Oh, trust me. I listen to their
I know, man.
They're worse than you.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus. They're one to talk.
And we have potty mouths.
Yeah. Yeah. Chopper, you fuck off. Anyway,
let's shut her down.
Yeah, let's shut her down. It's Friday. Let's
listen to some Classified and have a good weekend.
Everybody have a great week.
Yeah,
this
have
is
a great
Monday.
week, everyone.
It's
That's
Monday.
right. Yeah, thanks again for listening.
All right,
appreciate it.
Take care, everybody.
See ya.
I read the rules before I broke them. I broke the chains before they choked me out. Now I pay close attention, really learn the code. I learned to read the map before I hit the road.
Hey yo, I know you never heard this before, but I'd rather lose a fight than miss the war. And I ain't wishing competition or fishing for it. I'm just living in a system, conditions are poor. I've been lost in the rhythm and misinformed. Too many late nights hitting the liquor store. Too many bad decisions, half-ass attempts. No sweat, no fear, no blood, no tears. I go hard, and I ain't making up no excuse. I'm overdue, I don't do what I'm supposed to do. Cause if you think about it, man, we're supposed to lose. It ain't all picture perfect ocean views. No, I was a first-class rookie, taking out bullies in my all-black hoodie. Man, a mystery, you know the history. Get it or forget it, cause poof, I'm out of here.
I read the rules before I broke them. I broke the chains before they choked me out. And I paid close attention, really learned the code. I learned to read the map before I hit the road. We say,
nobody's gonna see me coming. Nobody's gonna hear a sound. No matter how hard they try it, no stopping me since I found
my inner ninja, my inner ninja, my inner ninja.
Hey yo, I've been high and I've been real low. I've been beaten and broken, but I healed though. So many ups and downs, roughed up and clown. We all got problems, but we deal though. I'm trying to do better now, find my inner peace, learn my art form and find my energy. When my back's on the wall, I don't freeze up. Now I find my inner strength and I re-up. Here we go. I know never been the smartest or wisest, but I realize what it takes. Never dwell in the dark, cause the sun always rises, but gotta make it to the next day. It's a feeling that you get in your lungs when you run, but you're running out of air and your breath won't come.